The Galactic Military Academy floated in the darkness of space like a small moon. It was built on Station, a place where young soldiers from hundreds of different planets came to train. For thousands of years, this academy had produced the finest warriors in the galaxy. Species of all kinds had walked through its metal halls. Some were tall and covered in scales. Some had wings. Some could read minds. But until 20 years ago, no human had ever set foot inside. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 2 decades ago. When they first made contact with the Galactic Union, the other species did not know what to think of them. Humans were small. They had no claws, no armor, no special powers. They could not breathe underwater or survive in the vacuum of space. To most aliens, humans seemed weak and fragile, like children pretending to be soldiers. But the humans wanted to prove themselves. They asked to send cadets to the academy. The Union agreed, mostly out of curiosity. They wanted to see what these strange new creatures could do. On this particular day, Training Hall 7 was filled with cadets from dozens of species. They sat in rows of seats that rose up like stairs around a large combat ring. The ring was made of a special material that could absorb impacts. It needed to be strong, because today was a special test. Commander stood in the center of the ring. He was one of the most feared warrior species in the galaxy. They were bred for battle over 10,000 generations. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, with scales covering their entire bodies. They had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. Their 6 eyes could see in all directions at once, and their bones were nearly unbreakable. Was not just any. He was called the Ender because he had ended the lives of 37 opponents in sanctioned combat. He had never lost a fight. He had never been knocked down. Across 12 star systems, his name was spoken with fear and respect. Today, he was here to test the new human cadets. The Academy commander, an old with silver skin, had announced this test 1 week ago. Every human cadet would have the chance to face in combat. It was not a fight to the death, but injuries were expected. The goal was simple: survive as long as possible. Most of the human cadets had looked sick when they heard the news. Everyone knew about, fighting him was like fighting a natural disaster. You did not win. You just tried not to die. But one human had done something unexpected. She had volunteered to go first. Her name was Park. She was 22 years old with black hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She stood at only 165 centimeters tall, which was short even by human standards. Her academy uniform was slightly loose on her thin frame. Looking at her, no one would think she was a fighter. She looked like a student, a scholar, someone who belonged in a library rather than a combat ring. But there she was, walking toward the ring with calm, steady steps. The other cadets watched in silence. Many of them felt sorry for her. Some of them thought she was crazy. A few of them respected her courage, even if they thought it was foolish courage. Another human cadet pushed through the crowd to reach her. He grabbed her arm just before she entered the ring. "Stop," he said. His voice was tight with worry. "You don't have to do this. Let someone else go first. Let me go first." Looked at him, her eyes were calm, almost peaceful. "I volunteered, this is my choice." "But why has killed people? Real warriors train fighters, you're good but you're not. You can't." "Can't what?" asked. There was no anger in her voice, only curiosity. Struggled to find the right words. "You can't beat him. Nobody can beat him. The best we can hope for is to last a few minutes and walk away with our bones still inside our bodies." Smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of her lips. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I can't beat him, but I'm still going to try." She pulled her arm free and stepped into the ring. The moment her feet touched the combat floor, the hall became completely silent. Even the aliens who had been whispering stopped talking. All eyes were on the small human girl walking toward the massive warrior. Watched her approach. His 6 eyes moved independently, studying her from every angle. He had fought many species before. He had crushed assassins who could move faster than sight. He had broken telepaths who tried to attack his mind. He had defeated opponents with blades, claws, venom, and technology beyond imagination. But he had never fought a human before. "You are the one who requested to face me first." His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Yes," said simply. "Why?" She stopped a few meters away from him, close enough to see every detail of his scaled face. "Because someone had to." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your species has only been in the Galactic Union for 20 cycles. You have no combat heritage, no biological advantages, no natural weapons." He spread all 4 of his arms wide, displaying his massive body. "I could tear you apart with my bare hands. I have torn apart creatures 10 times your size. Why would you challenge me?" Looked up at him. She had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. From where she stood, he looked like a mountain of muscle and scales. He looked like something out of a nightmare, a monster from the darkest corners of space. She should have been afraid. Anyone would have been afraid. But Park rolled her shoulders, loosened her muscles, and let out a slow breath. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the hall. She smirked. "I'm not afraid," she said. The words hung in the air like a challenge, stared at her for a long moment. Then he lowered himself into a combat stance, all 4 arms raised and ready. "Then let us see," he said, "if that courage is real." The signal to begin sounded like a deep bell, and in that moment everything changed. Moved first. His body exploded forward with a speed that seemed impossible for something so large. His 4 arms swept through the air in a pattern that had killed dozens of opponents before. Each arm took a different angle, cutting off every possible escape route. It was a technique he had perfected over 300 years of combat. No one had ever avoided it completely. Did not try to block. Her arms were too weak to stop even one of his blows. She did not try to retreat. There was nowhere to go. Instead, she did something that they had not expected. She moved toward him. In the split second before his arms reached her, dropped low and stepped forward. 2 of his arms passed over her head. One scraped against her shoulder, spinning her sideways. The 4th caught her in the ribs with a glancing blow that sent her flying across the ring. She hit the ground hard, rolled 3 times and came up on her feet. Blood trickled from her lip where she had bitten it during the impact. Her shoulder burned where his scales had scraped her skin. The blow to her ribs had knocked the air from her lungs. She could already feel a bruise forming. But she was alive, she was standing, and she was smiling. In the observation seats, hundreds of aliens watched in stunned silence. Nobody had ever survived this opening attack without serious injury. Some of the older warriors leaned forward in their seats, suddenly interested in this strange little human. Admiral, a high-ranking officer, sat in the VIP section with his aide. They were a telepathic species. They could read emotions and sometimes thoughts from the minds of other beings. Reached out with his mental powers to sense what the human girl was feeling. What he found made him recoil in shock. "Impossible," he whispered. His aide, a young female, looked at him with concern. "Admiral, what is it?" Silver Face had gone pale. Her fear, she's not suppressing it, she's not hiding it or pushing it away, she's using it. Using it how? The Admiral shook his head slowly. "I don't know, I've never seen anything like it. Her fear is there, strong and real, but it's flowing through her body like fuel. It's making her faster, sharper, more alert. It's like she has turned terror into power." In the ring, was studying his opponent with new interest. He had expected the human to be on the ground, crying in pain or begging for mercy. Instead, she was standing there with blood on her face and a smile on her lips. "Is that all?" asked. Her voice was steady, almost casual. Felt something he had not felt in a very long time. It was not fear, not exactly. It was uncertainty. This small creature was not behaving the way prey was supposed to behave. "You are either very brave or very stupid," he growled. "Why not both?" replied. She raised her fists and shifted into a fighting stance. It was a simple stance, nothing fancy or impressive. But there was something about the way she held herself that made pause. She was not trying to look strong or intimidating. She was simply ready. Attacked again. This time he was more careful. He used only two arms, keeping the other two ready to grab her if she tried to dodge. His fists shot toward her like missiles. Twisted sideways, letting one fist pass inches from her face. The other caught her in the left arm, and she heard something crack. Pain shot through her body like electricity, but even as she stumbled backward, she was already analyzing his movement pattern. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the fastest or the toughest. Their bodies had no natural armor, no built-in weapons. On paper, they were one of the weakest intelligent species ever discovered. But humans had something that most aliens did not understand. They had evolved on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, extreme weather, poisonous plants, and 1,000 other dangers. Every human alive was the descendant of survivors. Their ancestors had faced impossible odds and refused to die. This had given humans a unique gift. They could adapt. They could learn. They could push their bodies beyond normal limits when they needed to. And most importantly, they could take punishment that would have broken other species. Watched from the sideline, his hands clenched into fists so tight that his knuckles were white. He knew what was doing. Every human knew, even if they did not have a name for it. She was letting hit her. Not because she wanted to be hurt. Not because she was too slow to dodge. She was letting him hit her because she needed to feel that first real impact. She needed her body to understand that this was a real fight, a life-or-death situation. She needed to wake up the ancient survival instincts that slept inside every human. Some people called it the second wind. Some called it the survival response. Scientists called it the adrenal cascade. Whatever the name, the result was the same. When a human was pushed to the edge, when their body truly believed they might die, something changed inside them. Pain became background noise. Exhaustion became fuel. Fear became focus. His cracked arm hung at her side, useless for now, but she barely felt it. Her body was flooded with adrenaline and endorphins, natural chemicals that turned off the pain signals in her brain. Her senses became sharper. Time seemed to slow down. She could see every muscle in his body tensing before he moved. She could see his pattern. Every fighter had a pattern, a rhythm to their movements. It did not matter how skilled they were or how many years they had trained. Their body fell into habits, into sequences that felt natural. Most of the time, this pattern was invisible, too fast and too subtle for anyone to notice. But could see it now. She could see the way his upper left arm always moved slightly before his lower right. She could see the way he shifted his weight before each attack. She could see the tiny gaps in his defenses, the moments when he was vulnerable. She smiled again, blood staining her teeth. "Come on," she said. "Show me what the galaxy's greatest fighter can really do." Roared and charged forward. But this time, when his arms swept through the air, was not there. She had already moved, slipping through a gap in his attack that he did not even know existed. For the first time in 300 years, Commander missed completely. And deep in his ancient warrior's heart, something cold began to grow. It felt almost like fear. The fight had been going on for 10 minutes now. 10 minutes did not sound like a long time, but in combat, 10 minutes was an eternity. Most fights ended in seconds. A quick strike, a lucky blow, and it was over. The fact that was still standing after 10 minutes against was something that should not have been possible. The crowd in Training Hall 7 had gone completely quiet. Even the aliens who had been placing bets against the human had stopped talking. They were watching something they had never seen before, something that would be discussed in military academies for generations to come. Was covered in blood now. Most of it was her own. Her left arm was definitely broken, hanging limp at her side. Her right eye was swollen almost shut from a blow that had nearly cracked her skull. There were cuts on her face, her neck, her shoulders. Every breath she took sent sharp pain through her cracked ribs. But she was still moving, still fighting, still smiling. Was breathing heavily. This was unusual. They were designed for long battles. Their bodies could fight for hours without getting tired. But something about this fight was different. It was not his body that was getting exhausted. It was his mind. Every time he hit the human, she got back up. Every time he thought he had finally broken her, she came at him again. It was like fighting a ghost or a nightmare that would not end. He had faced enemies who were stronger than him. He had faced enemies who were faster than him. But he had never faced an enemy who simply refused to lose. In the observation area, Instructor Myra was watching with wide eyes. She was a species known for their speed and hunting skills. Her silver fur stood on end as she watched the small human dodge another one of his attacks. She turned to the human liaison officer standing next to her. His name was Lieutenant, a calm man with steady eyes. He had been assigned to help the human cadets adjust to the academy, but right now he was just watching the fight like everyone else. "What is she?" Myra demanded. Her voice was sharp with confusion and something that might have been fear. "We were told that humans were fragile, that they were peaceful and diplomatic, that they had no combat abilities worth mentioning." Did not look away from the fight. "We are peaceful," he said quietly. "We choose to be peaceful every single day. It is a choice we make, not a weakness we have." "Then what is this?" Myra gestured at the ring, where was ducking under another massive blow and striking at the back of his knee. "This is not peaceful. This is something else." Finally turned to look at her. His eyes were calm but serious. "Our world was not kind to us, Instructor. Earth is a beautiful planet, but it is also a dangerous one. We evolved alongside predators that could kill us with a single bite. We survived diseases that wiped out millions. We endured ice ages and droughts and famines. And we fought each other constantly for thousands of years." He paused, watching as was thrown across the ring again. She hit the ground hard, lay still for a moment, and then slowly pushed herself back to her feet. The crowd made a sound like a collective gasp. "We learned to survive anything," continued. "That is our biological advantage. Not strength or speed or natural weapons, just survival. The ability to keep going when every other species would give up." Myra shook her head. "But the pain, her injuries, how is she still conscious?" "Because her body has turned off the pain," explained. "When humans are pushed to the edge of death, our brains release chemicals that block pain signals. We can take injuries that should stop us and keep fighting. We can push our muscles past their normal limits. We can ignore exhaustion and hunger and fear." He smiled slightly. "We call it the human spirit. It is not poetry or philosophy. It is biology. We were built to survive the unsurvivable." In the ring had found another weakness in its defenses. Human scientists had studied anatomy for years, ever since first contact with the species. They had mapped every nerve cluster, every joint, every vulnerable point on the body. This information was taught to every human soldier, just in case they ever had to fight one. Knew exactly where to hit. She could not hurt with a normal punch. Her fists were too weak, and his scales were too strong. But she could target the soft spots between his scales. She could strike at the nerve clusters that controlled his arms. She could attack the joints where his armor was thinnest. It was like being stung by a bee. Each individual hit did almost nothing. But over time, the damage added up. His lower right arm was starting to go numb from the repeated strikes to its nerve points. His left knee was aching from the kicks she had landed there. Small pains, tiny injuries, but they were accumulating. "Your species," growled, his voice rough with frustration, "does not know when to die." circled around him, staying just out of his reach. Her breath was ragged and her vision was blurring from blood loss, but her mind was clear, sharper than it had ever been. "We know," she replied, "we just don't care." Roared and launched another attack. This one was different from the others. He put all of his strength into a single massive kick, aimed directly at her chest. There was no way to dodge it, no gap to slip through. It was pure power, meant to end the fight once and for all. The kick connected. Felt her ribs break. Not crack, not fracture, but actually break. The force of the blow lifted her off her feet and sent her flying backward. She crashed into the wall of the combat ring and slid to the ground. For a long moment, she did not move. The crowd held its breath. Even, who had been watching in terrified silence, took a step forward as if he wanted to run into the ring. Straightened up and turned away. The fight was over. There was no way the human could survive an injury like that. He had broken her ribs, probably punctured her lungs. She would need emergency medical care just to stay alive. Then he heard a sound behind him. It was a cough, wet and painful, followed by another, and then, impossibly, the sound of someone standing up. Turned around slowly. Was on her feet. She was hunched over, one arm wrapped around her broken ribs. Blood dripped from her mouth with every breath. Her legs were shaking so badly that she looked like she might fall over at any moment. But she was standing. She was alive, and when she raised her head to look at him, there was no fear in her eyes. There was only determination. "Is that," she coughed, spitting out more blood, "is that the best you can do?" And for the first time in his very long life, Commander felt something he had never felt before. He felt afraid of something smaller than him. 20 minutes had passed since the fight began. In the history of the Galactic Military Academy, no test had ever lasted this long. The record for surviving against was 6 minutes, held by a warrior who had trained his entire life for combat. That warrior had been carried out on a stretcher, barely alive. Had beaten that record almost 15 minutes ago, and she was still fighting. The crowd was no longer silent. Whispers filled the hall like the sound of wind through leaves. Every species, every alien, every cadet was talking about what they were seeing. This was not supposed to happen. This was not possible. A human, one of the weakest species in the galaxy, was standing toe-to-toe with the greatest warrior alive. Stood in the center of the ring, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He was not tired in the physical sense. His body could fight for hours more, but his mind was exhausted. He had never had to think this hard during a fight. Every pattern he used, the human found a way around it. Every technique he tried, she adapted to it within seconds. It was like fighting water. Every time he tried to grab it, it slipped through his fingers. And she would not stop getting up. That was the part that bothered him the most. He had broken her arm. He had cracked her skull. He had shattered her ribs. Any one of those injuries should have ended the fight. But every single time, she stood back up and raised her fists again. It was not bravery. Had seen brave warriors before. They fought hard and died with honor. This was something different. This was something darker. This was a refusal to accept reality, a denial of the basic facts of the universe. She should be dead. She was not. Therefore, she would not die. That seemed to be her logic, and it terrified him in a way he could not explain. In the VIP section, Admiral was still scanning the human's mind with his telepathic powers. What he saw made him grip the arms of his chair until his silver knuckles turned white. "She's not fighting him," he said to his aide, his voice barely a whisper. "She's fighting herself." "What do you mean, Admiral?" Every thought in her mind is about not giving up. She's not thinking about winning. She's not thinking about survival. She's just refusing, refusing to fall, refusing to stop, refusing to let her body do what bodies are supposed to do when they're this damaged. Shook his head in amazement. It's like she's arguing with death itself and winning. In the ring, made a decision. He had been holding back, using only a fraction of his true strength. He was supposed to test the cadets, not kill them. But this human was different. She was mocking him with her survival. She was making him look weak in front of the entire academy. He would end this now. One final blow with all of his strength. It would probably kill her, but at this point, he was not sure anything could kill her. He just wanted the fight to be over. Gathered all four of his arms together and raised them above his head. His muscles bulged as he prepared the most powerful strike he had ever thrown. Around him, the air itself seemed to vibrate with the force he was building. Watched him prepare. She knew what was coming. She could see the killing intent in his 6 eyes. This was not a test anymore. This was a real attack meant to destroy her completely. She should have been afraid. She should have tried to dodge or surrender or beg for mercy. Any sane creature would have done one of those things. Instead, took a step forward. The crowd gasped, even hesitated for a split second, confused by her movement. Why was she walking toward him? Why was she not running away? "What are you doing?" demanded. "You will die if you take that blow." Looked up at him. Her face was a mess of blood and bruises. One eye was completely swollen shut. Her broken arm hung uselessly at her side. She was swaying slightly, barely able to stand. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. "Maybe," she said, "but I won't be the one who breaks first." Stared at her. In that moment, he understood something fundamental about humans. Something that the Galactic Union had completely missed when they dismissed this species as weak and insignificant. Humans were not dangerous because of what they could do. They were dangerous because of what they were willing to endure. This small, broken creature in front of him was ready to die rather than give up. She was ready to take his strongest blow head-on, knowing it would destroy her, just to prove a point, just to show the galaxy that humans did not surrender. And if one human was willing to do this, how many others were there? How many billions of these creatures lived on their little planet, each one carrying this same impossible stubbornness inside them? Lowered his arms. The crowd went completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. They all knew what they were seeing, even if they could not believe it. "I yield," said. The words fell like bombs in the quiet hall. Whispers became shouts. Shouts became chaos. Aliens stood up from their seats, yelling in a dozen different languages. This was impossible. Warriors did not yield. Their code of honor forbade it. In 3,000 years of recorded history, no had ever surrendered a fight they could still continue. Until now. Blinked, confusion briefly crossing her battered face. "What?" "I yield," repeated. He lowered himself to one knee, bringing his eyes closer to her level. "You have won, human. But I haven't beaten you. You're not hurt, you could keep fighting." "Yes," agreed. "I could, but it would not matter. I could hit you 100 more times. I could break every bone in your body, and you would still get up. You would still keep fighting. You would die before you surrendered." He paused, his 6 eyes studying her with something that looked like respect. "I am a warrior. I have dedicated my life to combat, but I have never met anyone like you. You do not fight to win. You fight to prove that you cannot be defeated even if you lose. I do not know how to beat someone like that." Stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly her legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees, exhaustion finally catching up with her now that the fight was over. But even as she fell, she did not look away from. "We're humans," she said quietly. "This is what we do." Medical teams rushed into the ring. Aliens in white uniforms surrounded, scanning her injuries and preparing to transport her to the medical bay. She had broken ribs, a fractured arm, internal bleeding, and a dozen other injuries that would have killed a less stubborn species. But as they lifted her onto a stretcher, she was smiling. In the observation area, let out a breath he had been holding for 20 minutes. His legs were shaking. His heart was pounding. He had just watched his friend do something impossible. Around him, aliens from 100 different species were staring at the human cadets with new eyes. Everything they thought they knew about this young species had been wrong. The humans were not weak. They were not fragile. They were not insignificant. They were terrifying. And for the first time since humans joined the Galactic Union, the galaxy was starting to understand why. 3 days passed after the fight. The medical bay on station was quiet, filled with soft beeping sounds from the healing machines. The room smelled like clean metal and medicine. Sunlight from a nearby star came through a small window, making patterns on the white floor. Woke up slowly. At first she did not remember where she was. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar, covered with pipes and lights that were definitely not from Earth. Then the memories came back in pieces. The fight, the pain, the blood, and finally the moment when the galaxy's greatest warrior had dropped to one knee and surrendered. She tried to sit up and was surprised when her body actually listened. The pain was gone. She looked down at her arm, the one that had been broken in at least 2 places. It was completely healed, wrapped in a thin white bandage but no longer damaged. Alien medicine was impressive. A voice came from beside her bed. "You're an idiot." Turned her head and saw sitting in a small chair. He looked tired, like he had not slept much in the past few days. There were dark circles under his eyes and his hair was messy. "Good morning to you too," said. "It's evening, and don't change the subject." Leaned forward, his expression a mix of anger and relief. "You almost died. The doctors said you had 17 different injuries that could have killed you. 17. Your lungs were filling with blood. Your brain was starting to swell. If they had waited another 2 minutes to start treatment, you would be dead right now." Thought about this for a moment, but I'm not dead. That's not the point. Isn't it? Smiled the same calm smile she had worn during the fight. I survived. I proved something. That seems like the point to me. Opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. He knew she was right, even if he did not want to admit it. The entire academy was talking about what had happened in Training Hall 7. Human cadets who had been ignored or looked down upon were now being treated with respect. Species that had dismissed humanity as unimportant were suddenly very interested in learning more about Earth. Had changed everything with one fight. "The commander of the academy wants to see you," finally said. "When you're feeling better." Apparently there's been a lot of discussion about what happened. Good discussion or bad discussion? I'm not sure, both probably. Before could respond, the door to the medical bay opened. Both humans looked up, expecting to see a doctor or nurse. Instead, they saw a massive shape ducking through the doorway. Commander had to turn sideways to fit through the human-sized door. His 4 arms barely cleared the frame, and his head almost scraped the ceiling. In this small room, surrounded by delicate medical equipment, he looked even more terrifying than he had in the combat ring. Immediately stood up, his body tense with instinctive fear. Even knowing that meant no harm, his presence was overwhelming. Raised one hand in a gesture of peace. "Calm yourself, young human. I came to speak with the cadet, not to fight." Looked at, who nodded slightly. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped back, though he did not leave the room entirely. Moved closer to the bed, his massive form casting a shadow over. She looked very small lying there, wrapped in bandages and connected to healing machines. It was hard to believe that this tiny creature had stood against him for 20 minutes just a few days ago. "You are recovering well," observed. "The doctors here are good," replied. "They said I'll be back on my feet in another day or 2. Nodded slowly, his 6 eyes studying her face. "I came because I wanted to understand something. For 300 cycles I have fought beings across this galaxy. I have faced telepaths who attacked my mind with pure thought. I have faced predators who could move faster than light. I have faced warriors who were bred in laboratories for the single purpose of killing." He paused. "None of them frightened me, but you frightened me." Raised an eyebrow. "Because I wouldn't give up." "Because you enjoyed it." His voice was quiet now, almost thoughtful. "I felt it during our fight. The more I damaged you, the more alive you seemed. Your species does not merely endure pain. You have learned to find meaning in it, to use it as fuel for your spirit. I do not understand how this is possible." Was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain something that felt as natural as breathing to her. "On our world," she finally said, "we have a saying, 'What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.' It's not just poetry, it's literally true for us. Our bodies adapt to damage. Our minds adapt to trauma. Every hardship we survive makes us better at surviving the next one." She looked at directly, meeting all 6 of his eyes without flinching. "We call it perseverance. It's how we survived our world when everything on it was trying to kill us. It's how we survived each other during thousands of years of war and conflict. And it's how we made it to the stars, even though we started with nothing but rocks and fire." She paused, then added, "It's not that we like suffering. We don't. But we refuse to let suffering be the end of our story. We take whatever the universe throws at us and we keep moving forward. That's what makes us human." Was silent for a long moment, processing her words. Then he did something unexpected. He lowered his great head in what might have been a bow. "The Galactic Union believes that humans are no threat because you came to them seeking peace," he said. "They are fools. You seek peace because you know exactly what you are capable of without it. You choose to be kind because you understand cruelty better than any species in this galaxy." He straightened up and turned toward the door, but before he left, he stopped and looked back at her. "I will be requesting human officers for my command unit," he said. "The Union needs soldiers who can face the impossible and smile. I believe you will be the first of many." Then he was gone, ducking through the doorway and disappearing into the corridor. Let out a long breath and sank back into his chair. That was intense. Did not answer right away. She was looking out the window at the stars, millions of them, scattered across the blackness of space like diamonds on velvet. Each one was a sun with planets of its own. Each one was home to species that had been traveling the galaxy for thousands of years before humans even invented writing. And now, finally, those species were starting to see what humanity could really do. "It's about time," said softly. "What?" She turned to look at, and there was something in her eyes that he had never seen before. Pride, maybe, or determination, or both. "It's about time they learned who we really are." Outside the window, the stars kept shining. The galaxy kept turning. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the word was spreading. Stories were being told on 1,000 different worlds. The story of a small human who stood against a giant and refused to fall. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for the last time. And this was only the beginning.